So this is Jessica Ortner, and she has been quite an inspiration in the world of EFT to me. And so tell us a little bit about the book that you've written, because obviously we want to know about that, because you need to be able to buy this book. Because one of the things that you helped me do from watching you at Ignite is I liked to end the day with a glass of wine, or sometimes there's a little bit of Haagen-Dazs involved. And you know, my excuse is I work from home, the day just doesn't seem to end. And so by actually kind of giving it a standpoint and a reward, then my day was kind of complete and over. And I guess that when people correspond with food and things like that, that's really what your book is speaking to. So tell us about the book and what that book is speaking to.
Yeah, the book is called The Tapping Solution for Weight Loss and Body Confidence, and that's definitely a big aspect I address, are the cravings that we have. Now, your desire to want to have a moment of relaxation to end the day is valid and it's necessary. And the challenge is that we haven't found other ways to let go of the stress, so we feel dependent on that food. So the key is to not say that you'll never have ice cream again, but to feel like you have the choice. Yes, exactly. We're not gonna do that, please. I wouldn't even read my own book if someone said I couldn't have any more chocolate. No, the key is that to feel in control around food, and to feel empowered. And so as you begin to tap on your own anxiety, you begin to realize that you can make decisions as to whether you want something or not, or maybe better decisions. But when we're panicked, when we're in that fight or flight response, the blood is leaving our brain and going to our extremities because, you know, we're in this panic state, and we're stupid. It comes down to it, we don't make the right decisions. And I hear so many women and men say, I know exactly what I should be doing and I'm just not doing it. And the reason we're not doing it is because we have the panic, and the panic is in control. So tapping is about putting yourself back into the driver's seat and having control.
So just to reverse the cast slightly, just for people who don't know, so EFT is emotional freedom technique, but what does it do? How does it work?
So when you have an anxiety, like I mentioned, you know, blood's going out of your brain to your extremities, your heart is racing, you literally go into that fight or flight response because there's a part of your brain called the amygdala that is firing that response off because it feels like there's something not safe in your environment. So you have a physical anxiety, right? It's not just in our head, we feel it in our whole body. What you do with tapping is you get very clear on the thought that's creating the physical anxiety. And as you begin to stimulate these acupressure points while focusing on the thought, you calm the body and it sends a calming signal to your brain, letting your brain know that even though you have the thought, it's safe to relax. Now, have you ever noticed that you're telling a story, and just by telling the story, you're just getting angrier and angrier and angrier? Oh, and other times, maybe years later, because time passes, you tell the same story and it doesn't have the charge. It's just a story. The key with tapping is to get rid of that charge. So that those beliefs, those stories, those thoughts, they don't control you anymore. You feel like you're in control.
So my understanding is that that's how EFT works. It's by tapping on the meridians, and that kind of like brings the brain back into a sense of calm, and then we can be in a little bit more in control. Now there's been sort of like spin-offs. It's almost like this streamline of how this all works, and then there's the spin-offs. And so obviously we know about which is what I'm a practitioner in, which is matrix reimprinting, and then there's rebirthing, and then there's all of these different things. What do you feel about the spin-offs that have kind of come from it?
I love them. I think that we should be growing, we should be evolving, and I feel like people like different styles. You know, when it comes to music, we're not all going to love country music. So when it comes to these styles of using tapping, I think it's fantastic, and I think it should be encouraged. And I think it's one of the reasons that I love tapping so much is because you can go, all right, well, I'm really into hypnosis, let me use this with my hypnosis. Or I'm really into affirmations, let me incorporate this to the work I'm using with affirmations. So I think that's one of the reasons that it's spreading so fast, and I think it should be encouraged. Yeah,
I mean, certainly for me, one of the things that really surprised me soon after I'd actually got trained and become qualified was I had a client who, she'd had an addiction to sleeping tablets for 12 years, and I was actually really nervous to work with her because I was thinking, well, I'm not really medically trained, and so I did that whole consult your doctor before, you know, because it's kind of, and because otherwise you're sort of like, quick, help, and so we worked on two aspects of it. We worked on the addiction, but we also worked on the fear of sleeping, you know, and not sleeping, and having to kind of like be a mum and cope the next day, and so we worked on those two things. And we used Matrix to actually go back in time, and we found, and she was really surprised at finding where that fear had come from, and it was a belief that her mum had sort of said, you know, you'll be rubbish at school if you don't have an early night. you're terrible when you're tired. You always throw a little tantrum when you're tired. And so she had this idea that if she didn't get enough sleep, that she was going to be a problem to people, and that equated limiting beliefs about being a bad mum, all of those other things. So we had to kind of like work on those two issues, and in one session she didn't touch sleeping tablets again. Didn't mean that she had peaceful night's sleep every night, but it basically meant that she didn't need that crutch anymore. So you must have heard, I mean, that's obviously one major success story in one of my clients, but you must have heard so many different success stories. What's the success story in your own life with this? Because obviously this is something that your brother got into and kind of brought you into that, I guess. It was that way around.
Yeah, we kind of learned it near the same time, and we made the documentary together. Yeah. But, you know, my first experience with tapping was actually through my brother, because he read it online. And when anyone comes to you and says, I found something online, you want to try it, my answer is no. I'm like, what is this? But I gave it a try when I had the flu. I was really sick. And I began to tap on these acupressure points while focusing on just how sick I felt. And all of a sudden I felt this, you know, this emotion come up. And I looked at him and I said, I don't want to get better. He said, what do you mean you don't want to get better? And I said, I am so tired of trying so hard and nothing working. And I had all of this frustration and all of this anger. And so instead of focusing on me being physically sick, I focused on that. I focused on having a releasing that anger, that judgment, that frustration. And once I was able to really feel calm in my body, I took a deep breath in, and I was shocked to realize that my sinuses had cleared up. They had cleared up. And you know, to this day, I still see, especially with pain relief, I see the way that people are getting rid of pain. And it still surprises me because we live in a culture that undervalues the importance of emotions and emotions on the body. And things are changing. You know, there are a lot of doctors, I mean, now it's common knowledge. Stress impacts your body, impacts your immune system, your endocrine system, your metabolism. And so as we begin to focus on stress relief, our body is able to do what it's meant to do, which is heal and recover. And so I'm always shocked. And I think it's partly because I'm shocked at how stress impacts us and the power of our own body to recover when we let go of that stress.
And also I find it very shocking because I was told, you know, right the way from childhood, if you get sick, you go and see the doctor and he gives you some pills.
Yeah.
And so to actually find that there is something that is so impactful that works on, you know, the holistic, but looks at the whole entire person to actually kind of like really come to grips with what's actually going on within your psychology, within your body, within, you know, your mindset, within your energy system.
And then you can make the right decisions. Like I work a lot with women. We have a charity, and one of the organizations I work with are women who are going through breast cancer, and they have to make very serious decisions as to what medication they take. And it's not easy. They have a lot of blame. They fear about making the wrong decision and what that means for their family. I mean, a lot of these women are more concerned about their family than their own lives. And when we're in that panic state, we can't make a great decision because we are so stressed out. Everything's foggy. Everything's overwhelming. If we can deal with the stress and come from a centered place, then we can see things logically. I mean, when we are stressed, we are dumb. I mean, you know,
we're actually in the wrong part of the brain.
We're in the wrong part of the brain to make a decision. And so I had someone come up to me, actually this was last week, I was speaking at a Hay House event, and she said, you worked with me a few years ago and I didn't know whether to take this medication or not. And I tapped and I was so centered that I was able to realize I had more control over the situation. And she's like, I made a plan with my doctor and I did this holistic stuff and I tried this certain medicine for this time, and I was centered enough to figure out what was best for me. And that's why, because life isn't black and white. It's not about never going to the doctor, but it's about saying, okay, let's deal with the stress so you're making the best decisions and you are taking responsibility for your own health.
Yeah, and I think that that's so important, and to be really clear on all of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, and I think that this is something that I'm now speaking more to practitioners who've been doing EFT and have kind of like bolted it on to different things. What's going to be next for you? Because does it get to a point where you feel tapped out, like where you just kind of go like, actually, like, you know, because obviously this has turned into a dramatic an important kind of mission for you, that you've taken from your own life. It's almost like you've taken it almost literally off your own belly, and you've channeled it into something really, really important. Where does it end? Does it end? Does it not end? Like, where's the journey for you? What's your, when you project yourself forward, where do you see yourself going? Difficult question.
Yes. And that was a question I used to ask myself a lot. And I've actually stopped recently. You know, my life and how this movie has changed, and this book and the foundation, they were all things that I couldn't control. You know, so I feel like the best thing I can do is just be led and show up and see what the signs are and kind of let life reveal itself. Because when we try to control and have a plan, and then we also get into judgments of like how far you should be along by a certain time, and you know, all these judgments about where we should be in life, I feel like if we can just have more present moment experiences, the future is actually better than what we can comprehend, because there are variables in play that we don't even know about. And so, you know, the answer really is that all I know is that right now this feels good, and I feel like, you know, people really need to learn this message, and it's only just hitting. I've been doing this for 8 years. It's just hitting the tipping point. You know, I feel like this is really just the beginning. There's
great people in the UK that are actually getting it into the NHS at the moment.
Yeah.
Because they're doing the scientific stats behind it that's needed to kind of like get it into the NHS. So
it's an exciting time.
A really exciting time, as long as we don't get closed down by the pharmaceuticals, we're fine.
Yeah.
But it is a really, really exciting time.
And I'd like to answer your question in a different way too, of how you go forward. I don't think you can ever be tapped out, because as we grow, we always have to exit our comfort zone. And that's the moment where we can go back to something like tapping. You know, right now I just spoke in front of, I think it was 500 people. If you put me in
by the way.
600
Not
people.
To frighten you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
600 people. If you put me in a crowd of 50,000, I'm going to do some tapping before I get on stage. And that's okay, because I haven't done 50,000 before. I've done 600. And then when I want to do 100,000, you know, you tap every time things grow. I think that a lot of times we are scared of what success means, and we're scared to shine. And so as we continue to grow, tapping can continuously help us to feel more comfortable as we're exiting our comfort zone, and just make the process a lot easier. So I think it's a process that you do for the rest of your life. I don't believe people are broken and need healing, and I don't think you ever get to a place where we're cooked, you know, where we're done. I think we're always growing and evolving. Yeah, I haven't.
Perfect. I walk amongst you peasants, but I am perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, no. Well, thank you, Jessica Ortner. Wonderful to catch you in this moment in time. Congratulations on the book, and thank you so much for your work. I know it certainly helped me, and I think spreading that message is a really important one, so thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.